Hey, this is the World Advice Channel 2. What I want to talk about today is the problem with Martin Luther King. So, for this video, I'll discuss the problem with Martin Luther King when it comes to his ideology and belief system. Um, and when it comes to that, specifically, I'm referring to his ideology and belief system when it comes to seeing his belief, his way of thinking, as something that's applicable to today's world. So, now that I've mentioned that, let's get started. So when it comes to the problem with Martin Luther King, what exactly is a problem with Martin Luther King, in all honesty? Well, for this video, I'll discuss 2 points, which when it comes to the problem with Martin Luther King's way of thinking, and um and to get started with it, the first one I wanted to debunk, simply put it, is the idea that violence is never the answer. And when you're dealing with an oppressive government or belief system, violence should never be considered an option. Okay. That is the first one I'm going to talk about. Okay. Now, before I get started with this, I just want to make it clear that I do respect Martin Luther King. I don't think he's a bad person or he had bad intentions. There are some theories that he was a CIA agent, but I don't know if that's really true or not. But one thing is definitely for certain is that I respect Martin Luther King. I don't have a problem with him. I don't see him in a negative light. For the most part at least, he seems like a really decent person who just wanted the best for black people. I don't hate him. But when it comes to his ways of thinking, I just don't think it really necessarily is correct. Not even just referring to us black people in our struggle, but referring to the world as a whole, his way of thinking, okay? Because as I said before, I was getting to the first point of nonviolence and why nonviolence doesn't work. And the problem with Martin Luther King's way of thinking is that which is the point I said I was going to get to, and I'm going to get to it right now, is this whole idea that violence is never the answer. Okay, when you're dealing with an oppressive regime of people or oppressive group, whatever you like to say, government, whatever you like to say, to sum it up, you're being oppressed. For that matter, violence should never be considered an option. For crying out loud, no matter how bad it gets or how terrible it gets, and peaceful protests will, of course, resolve the situation. But the problem with his way of thinking is that way of thinking is absolutely incorrect. Because the truth of the matter is that at some point, man, you honestly have to realize, though, that in life, you have to realize that sometimes people are just evil and people just do things that are wrong and they don't have to do what they do. Okay? They just do things that are wrong and they don't really feel that um that they have that you should be treated right and proper. There's nothing more to it than that. There's nothing deep or philosophical. What they did is simply evil. Simply evil for the sake of gaining something in return without having to give you anything in return for that matter, okay? For the things that you're doing, okay? That's the truth about oppression. Oppression is a way for a group of people to gain as much benefit from mistreating another group of people to get as much as they possibly can from it without having without of course having to put in without having to use any money or anything. It's just, to sum it up, it's just an easy way for a group of people to feel that they can become more successful and prosperous in the most easiest way possible imaginable. Okay. And of course, as we've seen throughout history, especially recent history, the past 500 years, the end results of it are extremely terrible. Okay. And the truth of the matter is, when it comes to oppression, okay, is that especially in the modern day age and the world we live in compared to how it was in the 1960s, sometimes you just have to realize violence actually is the answer, okay? Should it be considered a last resort? Yes, but you should never completely throw it out completely, because sometimes people in general, as I was getting at before, are just evil. And the truth of the matter about societies that are oppressed is that, simply put it, they don't really, or to say societies that are oppressive, whatever, you get the point. Societies that are oppressive sometimes will just simply not give you what you want. Because the thing about it, look at it this way, okay? When it comes to this particular topic, for a society of people that are oppressive to another group of people in order to gain something from it, The truth of the matter is, what makes you think if a society of people is oppressive or oppressors, whatever you like to say, okay? A society is mistreating a certain group of people and they're living good, happy, comfortable lives. What makes you think that they would actually feel the need to go out of their way to stop mistreating someone, even if they're constantly complaining, um, and talking about, oh, we're being mistreated, and so on and so forth. When they don't, when simply put it, they simply put it, do not have to do that. In honesty, they're living their best lives, and so on and so forth. And that's the truth about oppression that they don't tell you. Is that sometimes people just are just are just evil and they don't really feel a need to really change anything, okay? And that's the thing that people tend not to understand about oppression, okay? Is that it creates a society of people that literally believes that they're superior to another group of people, and not just superior to another group of people, they can treat them however the hell they want to treat them. And the truth of the matter is, not only does it dehumanize them, they also benefit the rewards of it. When you look at the history, of course, like of the oppression of Africans, specifically Africans, even other groups, but specifically Africans, of course. Okay, the people who oppressed the Black Africans were living their best lives. They were making a lot of money. They were making a profit. They um you know were living quite comfortably and quite well, for that matter. So if you're come from a lifestyle where you're living quite well from the oppression of another group of people, what makes you think you're going to want to give it up? Just simply because, you know, because what they're doing is wrong and it's hurtful. What makes you think that they have to stop doing that? And if that is so true, then why did hell did America have to go to war against its own people in the South in order to end it? So the whole argument that nonviolence is the answer and violence is never the answer simply by in itself makes no sense, okay? And that's the truth of the matter. Not to mention the other problem with the whole situation, especially South Africa being the perfect example of this whole situation that of seeking nonviolent protest, is that the truth of the matter is, okay, to put it bluntly, in the end of the day, is that it also is extremely freaking horrible in finding the people who did the wrong things ever being prosecuted. Because the thing is that, of course, a lot of the people who, of course, were a part of that oppressive government, of course, for crying out loud, they were oppressing this other group of people, so they obviously had to be quite powerful, tend to be horrified that when their reign that if their reign of terror comes to an end, and if it does come to an end, that they're going to be prosecuted for the things that they did. And it creates a situation where you have to be in a society where you're around people who did really effed up, messed up things, and were not brought to justice for it. There's numerous people in South Africa, white South Africans of a certain generation, who literally were not prosecuted for the wrong things that they did. In South Africa, if you look around enough and you live long enough, you could probably find quite a few people who did things, especially if you were born and raised there. You could probably remember some of the exact faces of the officers and so on and so forth who did certain things to you, which is not right. So that's exactly what I'm trying to get across here. So when I hear this shit about, oh, violence is never the answer, what exactly are you talking about? And that's the first point I want to get across. The second point I want to get across is the unrealistic expectations of not holding hate in your heart. It is that's not right either. Because the truth of the matter is, which I actually find quite ironic, because pretty much every neighborhood in America, that pretty much has Martin Luther King, that's Martin Luther King Street, is even by hood standards, for crying out loud, is known as one of the most violent places in that particular that particular hood, to be quite honest with you. So what does that show you? And that goes along, figuratively speaking, shows you the problem with Martin Luther King's ideology, okay? Sometimes in life, it's just okay to realize that you can't bring everyone together. It's sometimes just okay to realize that sometimes people just don't like each other. Trying to act like it's all good and hold everything in might work in a short run, but the moment something slightly happens, then that hatred comes out, and it's like nothing you have ever seen before in your freaking life. So it brings up the question, why do you even want to hold all that stuff in? The whole idea of that, let's try to let go of hate, and stuff, which goes along with ideology. Let's bring everyone together. Doesn't work in a modern day world. In all honesty, and never really truly worked as well as it have you believe that it worked. It just takes the smallest thing to happen. It comes out and everyone is just like, holy shit, I did not know that guy was even capable of that, which makes it even worse, for crying out loud. So in truth, you can't just hold things in. Sometimes in life it's just okay to acknowledge you don't like someone and you're very unhappy with the way they treated you, and so on and so forth. Instead of playing this whole thing about, oh, let's all love each other, we're all God's children. That doesn't work. And that's a problem with Martin Luther King, okay? Is that not only does he say violence is never the answer, which sometimes it is, and also the truth of the matter is that he sets unrealistic expectations for human beings. You can't hold things in all the time, and that's the truth of the matter. So anyway, this is my video. I hope you enjoyed it, and just remember, if you like this video, remember to thumb this video up and hit the subscribe button. And this is all I have to say, and so we put them up. So bye.